All right, let's dive in. We're going somewhere really special today, a tiny, windswept part of Portugal, and it's home to a wine with just an unbelievable story of survival. Seriously, this is the wine that just refused to die.
So our whole story really hinges on this one big mystery. Picture this. It's the 19th century, and this tiny little bug, a pest, just tears through Europe, wiping out pretty much every single vineyard. It changed wine forever. But one little place, Colares, was somehow untouched. So the big question is, how did they do it?
Okay, so before we can really get the miracle of Colares, you gotta meet the bad guy in this story. And I'm not kidding. This was basically an apocalypse for winemakers across the whole continent.
Meet Phylloxera. It's this microscopic little aphid. You can barely even see it. But its impact? Oh, it was absolutely catastrophic. See, it goes for the roots of the European grapevines, the Vitis vinifera, and it just starves the plant to death. And when it showed up in Europe, the vines had zero natural defense. We're talking a plague of almost biblical proportions here.
Just look at this timeline. You can see the pest just marching relentlessly across Europe. By the 1880s, it's absolutely tearing through Portugal. But then, something weird happens. It just stops. Right before it gets to Colares, this little spot on the Atlantic coast. Their vineyards? Totally fine. So, again, the question is, why?
Now, the whole world was scrambling for a fix, and eventually, they found one, grafting the European vines onto American rootstock, which was resistant. But here's the crazy part. Colares didn't need it. Their defense mechanism was already there, hiding in plain sight. It was literally right under their feet.
And that right there is the first huge piece of the puzzle. The secret to how Colares survived, it wasn't some clever human invention. Nope, it was geology. It was all about the ground itself. This comparison just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got your typical vineyard soil, right? It's rich, it's fertile, but it's also like a superhighway for Phylloxera to just zip from root to root. But then look at the other side. That's the Chaudiarea, the sand floor of Colares. That little aphid, it literally cannot survive or move through that deep, dense sand. The sand acted like a fortress.
But, the sand is really only half the story. The whole environment here is, well, it's extreme. Just try to imagine constant, salty winds just whipping off the Atlantic. They're so strong that growers have to build these special cane fences, they're called palisadas, just to stop the vines from getting totally shredded. It's this tough, harsh coastal climate that gives the wine its one-of-a-kind character.
So, okay, if the land is the stage for our story, then we've got to meet the stars of the show, the grapes. And of course, the people who perform these almost superhuman tasks just to grow them.
And here they are, the two local heroes. First up is Ramisco. This is the tough, rustic red grape, and it makes wines with just incredible structure. Then you have Malvasia de Colares. Totally different. It's this delicate, aromatic white grape that just perfectly captures that fresh, salty vibe of the coast. And this is so important, because Phylloxera couldn't survive in that sandy soil. The vines in Colares never, ever had to be grafted onto American rootstock. They're grown pied franc, which means on their own feet, their original European feet. That is unbelievably rare today. It makes these vines like living pieces of history from before the plague. But planting these pied franco vines, man, it's an almost unbelievable amount of work, all by hand. Growers have to dig these massive trenches, sometimes meters deep, straight down through all that sand until they hit a layer of clay way down below. Then they plant the vine into that clay to get moisture, and then they have to bury the whole thing again, leaving just the tiniest little tip exposed. It's a testament to the grit of these wine growers. So, after all that, right? The sand, the wind, that insane, backbreaking labor, what's the payoff? What do these incredible wines actually taste like? Okay, let's break it down. The red, the Ramisco, gives you these really elegant, earthy wines. They've got a firm structure that's just built to age. The white Malvasia, though, is a whole other world. It's really like taking a sip of the Atlantic Ocean, in the best way. You get bright citrus, floral notes, and this unmistakable, salty sea spray finish.
So if you're going to remember anything about Colares wine, remember this. That signature salty iodine minerality, a super vibrant acidity that makes them feel so fresh, and an elegant style. These are not big, powerful bruisers. And the best part? They can age for decades, turning into something just absolutely complex and beautiful over time.
You know, you'd think that after surviving a plague that literally destroyed European wine, Colares would have earned a little peace and quiet. But the story isn't over. A whole new chapter has begun, and it's bringing completely different kinds of challenges.
For almost 100 years now, the local cooperative winery has really been the guardian of this whole legacy. It unites hundreds of these tiny growers, and by doing that, it's made sure that these traditions, and the wines themselves, don't just vanish because of modern economic pressures. It's truly a bastion of preservation.
But the threats they're facing today are totally different. First, there's massive pressure from urban sprawl. I mean, this is prime real estate right near Lisbon. Second, all that intense manual labor we talked about, it makes the cost of making the wine incredibly high. And of course, climate change is the new big unknown for this very delicate coastal environment.
And all of this really leaves us with one final big question. Colares is a living monument to resilience. It's a wine that's hard to make and even harder to grow. So in a world that's all about speed and convenience, how do we make sure a treasure like this isn't lost to time? Protecting it, really, isn't just about the wine. It's about us deciding which parts of our history are worth fighting for.